I will ask you the question again. So we have it, what we're talking about.
Okay.
We might share it with other people.
All right.
Basically, the question is how this whole corporation concept draws, roots from New Zealand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in the first instance, we're looking at how Britain came to be in New Zealand. And everything that we're experiencing now has come out of the House of Lords in England. And that was in the early 1800s when through select committee minutes, and it's all evidence. So we have all of that, those records. They looked to set up a crown here in New Zealand. But in order for them to do that, they had to figure out who had the hereditary right on this land, going back to what they wanted to claim was the whole world. They wanted to claim the whole world. They wanted to claim the globe. So if we're picking up when they came to New Zealand, they were looking for a bloodline that would trace back to ancient times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So by identifying that bloodline would mean that they would be able to capture the whole world. Okay, so this is high level thinking as far as looking to.
Are we talking about the oldest bloodline recorded in New Zealand?
No,
so, no,
because we're talking tribes here. We're talking Israel. We're talking the 13 tribes of Israel. They were looking for those bloodlines because in order to capture that bloodline or the hierarchy of that bloodline in a person, they captured the whole world.
Got it. And where do they draw that from? That if they, capture that bloodline?
Well, they spent time here in New Zealand back in the early 1800s interviewing the chiefs of the various, we call them hapu here, so tribal clans, families. And, all our chiefs have bloodlines, but they identified one particular bloodline that was earlier than all the rest, as they perceived. Okay, so around came 1834, and Māori were having they'd entered into trade with England, and they couldn't trade because their ships were confiscated. So they were given a flag by the English. They were given a flag in 1834, a trading flag. Okay. 1835 came around and they introduced the Declaration of Independence of New Zealand. It was 4 articles and it was signed by most of the northern chiefs and some of the southern chiefs eventually over a period of 4 or 5 years before.
So can I just stop you there and just have some questions like regarding this trading and the ship confiscating? We are talking about this community living on New Zealand, the tribes. They were not able to trade. Who was preventing them?
Well, they were able to trade, except an incident happened. It's written, I haven't got that in my mind. An incident happened where their ships were confiscated. Now, they were trading kauri timber, and this timber was strong enough to make masts on ships and that type of thing, and flax, so they were trading. So their ships were confiscated, and they entered a treaty with the English by receiving a flag from King William. So
who confiscated the ships?
I think it was taken by the English, or was it the French? I don't know that part of the story, but that
So they could have been worked together as well.
Yep.
Just it's this concept like problem reaction solution. I will create a problem. You have a reaction. You cannot trade.
All right.
Ah, there you go.
Yes.
I give you my flag. Now you can trade. Okay, that's what we got. Yeah.
And that's it. It's like, I give you my flag. It's not your flag. It's my flag. I'll give you my flag, and you can fly my flag. So therefore, you come under me. You know, that kind of thing.
I'm so angry right now. I'm gonna go and walk about it. That's what I learned here in Australia. You can walk about things.
I walk about.
I mean, I know that, but then somebody like put it in a concept like walk about.
Sure.
Okay, got it. So now we have the Declaration of Independence of New Zealand that all the chiefs signed. How do they got them to sign? So they were like, why do they need that declaration? They were already independent.
Correct. We were already sovereign. The chiefs were already sovereign.
So what's that? You know.
So we were already sovereign. We didn't need a chief. We didn't need an English king to tell us we were already sovereign.
What the scam? Yeah.
Exactly. So
why did the chiefs sign? Why did the chiefs sign? They must have known. You know, it's our land. They came, you know, to us.
The chiefs signed, and maybe the spin around that time from the English was the French were coming over to stake their claim on the lands here. So that was one thing that got the English moving. We don't want the French coming in here. Let's stake our claim with the people of the land first before they get here. The other reason was because of immigration, because people were coming from England and wherever, there wasn't any law that was there was law. It was lawless, put it this way. It was lawless. So they decided between them, and the chiefs were saying, okay, we are happy, you can come in, we can share, we can trust and share.
That was a treaty. Let's call it a treaty between the newcomers and the original people of the land, where the newcomers basically, let's say the chiefs of New Zealand were very generous.
Yes, and let's call it the first constitution.
Yeah, so Declaration of the Independence of New Zealand is the new constitution under this scam that they planned.
Correct. Now we start getting to a little bit of a bait and switch. We start moving into bait and switch territory, and what that means is the popular belief is that we would welcome in the new people and we would share our lands with them, and that we would create a society of good trading and that type of thing.
Cooperation, You wanted to cooperate,
Yes. However, evidence reveals that the Declaration of Independence was written by a member of the Colonial Office. He had a member, he had one of tangata whenua translated into the reo, we call it, or translated into our language. But what we've discovered by following the evidences of what we call the blueprint of government, of setting up government, and reviewing those 4 articles, is what was intended is not what played out. So within the articles is a hidden code, essentially. And in the hidden code, the basis of that is Article 1 and Article 2. Article 1 fairly much declares that you, me, we are sovereign, but it's said in our language. You, me, we, ko mātou, are sovereign. So we're talking about all people.
Got it?
Article 2 gives rise to administration. So the sovereign can say, okay, well, I'd be okay with someone, not necessarily you guys, but I'd be okay with allowing a constitution that would give some form of administration or looking after the people. That's in Article 2.
That's where they created the administration. Yeah, that's how they created the administration to serve the sovereign, which is each of the people.
Correct.
Yeah.
Article 2. Then Article 3 goes into the law, and then Article 4. We have to realise, and I'm only briefing this. Article 4. There's a bit of bait and switch in there too, and that talks about becoming the parent of King William. Sorry, allowing King William to be the protector of us. The protector of us.
Allowing. Okay, got it.
Okay, so the intention in English and in Māori is that we would be protected, but the hidden code is the other way around. Why would we need an overseas king to protect us?
You were invaded. That was the Article 4.
Yeah.
Was the article on invasion, and all the chiefs agreed on it.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's what Crown Sovereign was mentioning, you know. It's a military corporation, basically. Yes. We are all invaded. We just don't realize it now. Yes. When the financial system is basically what's happening, this is all a cover because the financial system was working on debts, and kids were in debt, you know, and it was going endlessly. So they want people more under control, you know, to control
the financial system was set up. It was set up under those 4 articles. It was set up under those 4 articles, so it would roll out. Now, in 1839, the British teamed up with some chiefs down in the northern part of the North Island, and they bought themselves into sovereignty. So they says, look, how would I become a chief in your tribe? If I paid you £100, would that make me a rangatira? Oh yes. So they bought sovereignty. They bought sovereignty, and then they realised that they didn't have the sign-off by the Queen at the time. Queen Victoria, I think, was in reign at that time, and they couldn't push out their council and their form of governance without that sign-off.
Why wouldn't she sign that off?
Because she's not sovereign on these lands. She's not sovereign on these lands.
Exactly.
So what they had to do then was they had to create the Treaty of Waitangi, 1840, which brought the Queen of England in, which brought the straw man in.
Writing all down.
Which brought Article 2 of that 1835 declaration in to the lands.
Article, did you say 32?
Article 2. So the Queen of England, on signing the 1840 treaty here in New Zealand, she's Article 2. She's the administrator.
Got it. So we are going back to the declaration.
Yes.
And to the right to administrate the sovereigns.
Yes.
And can you again repeat by which act did they brought the Queen in?
By which what?
Act.
Right.
What act? Was it treaty, or how did she make people believe, you know, because it's all a fiction, that she is a sovereign, where basically they are sovereign, but now was there another treaty, or they did
No. It's through Article 4 of the 1835 Declaration the word
allowing
the protection,
okay,
English protection, okay?
got it.
But it wasn't English protection. It was protection of the newcomers by the sovereigns of the land. We were giving the protection, it wasn't the other way around. So then we come into 1840 and we pick up on Article 4 of the 1835. And the Queen is saying, well, I'm here to protect you now. So the Queen is usurping the rights of, and we agree to it, the rights of the sovereign. So it's at that point where we become trust estate. We become the children. We don't have a sovereign. We're not sovereign anymore. We're now administrated. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see the administration, but I cannot see, she just like became the sovereign, you know, by stating it. Like she
Yes.
said, okay.
Yeah, well, we gave her I'll say authority, for want of a better word. We gave her the authority back in Article 2 of the 1835.
Yeah, got it. It was like a red carpet that they rolled out through legislation.
Yes.
We can parallel look right now what
Yes.
they're doing. It's all unconstitutional, it's all unlawful, but it's going on. So that's, wow.
Well,
that's
it is lawful. It is lawful, and it is in the Constitution, because in our Constitution.
In your, yes.
But when you look at what was set up here as the principal declaration or the principal arm of government globally, then you'll understand that New Zealand acts as the franchisor of all the world's administration.
Got it. Do you know what's that called in war games? It's called beachhead. And I just listened to another documentary when they invaded Normandy. That's, you know, that's how they do. They invade one part of a country, like they're doing in Melbourne right now. Yeah. You know, and then through that spot, you know, they start invading the other parts. That's what happened. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Yeah.
So you're getting the picture of what they did with 1835.
Yes, very sneaky.
And then they had to bring the administration in, and they thought they'd brought it in 1839 when the colonial bankers and merchants signed when they paid for sovereignty with the chiefs. They thought they'd brought administration in at that time, but they couldn't, because England said, no, that's not legal. You cannot do that. You have to have, you know, the sign off by England. So that's how the 1840 came to be, because the 1839 setup, they couldn't roll that out.
So they 1839 they appointed chiefs, you know, and they bought sovereignty. And then the Queen declared there was a treaty of this Waitiki. Did you said sorry, I didn't get
Waitangi, yes. Treaty of Waitangi was signed.
Treaty of Waitangi, and that's how. And what was the treaty about? What was?
Well, the importance of the Treaty of Waitangi is it brought administration in.
And it declared that the Queen is the administration. That's the straw man.
It's the head of administration, yes. So if we go back to 1835, you'll get a picture of who the sovereign is. So in those articles, but particularly Article 1, they centralized all crowns into one crown. So all crowns, you and me are the living heir of a crown at that time.
How did they do that? You said 80, did you say 1845?
1835. We've only got two. We've got a declaration, 1835. We've got the Treaty of Waitangi, 1840.
Okay, I didn't write that down, 1835. Okay, that's how they set up basically beachhead, you know, to spread first in New Zealand,
yes,
tricking these people, you
yes,
know, giving up their sovereignty. But
yes,
basically, if you think in common sense, they couldn't do it. It's all a scam.
yes.
And then
yes.
they did it through all world. And how can you explain what there is, like, people that mention that we are the strawman, and now this other concept that you guys say basically the administration is the strawman. It's something, you know, made up.
They're all one of the same. Well, they're all one of the same. When you understand what 1835 is, 1835 is the centralization of of all sovereigns into one crown.
Got it. And that's the Article 1.
Article
saying
1.
You, me, we are sovereign.
Yes. All sovereigns were centralized into one crown, and they use crown in legislation to identify us as sovereigns. But we don't know that because we keep going back to our default, which is the person, the individual, the taxpayer. All those straw men.
Like everyone, like every person of this world right now, they are not
Yes.
aware what's
No.
actually going on.
No.
And how did this, now explain to me the birth certificate and how basically we are a dead entity to the corporation. That's what I understand. And according to that, you know, they have always clean hands, whatever they do, because you cannot hurt a dead entity.
Yeah.
That's what they did. Can you now explain how they spread, you know, and how they got this birth certificate, you know, scam?
Sure. So it is all the origin is the 1835 and the 1840. Okay, so now we've got the right to set up administration, governance, parliament eventually, and we've got the right to do that sort of in our districts, and eventually we've got the right to do that in our territories, and then eventually we've got the right to do the same thing in our colonies. So can you see how it grew from here to here to here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the coronation. It's the coronation of the strawman.
Yes, it is. Yes, that's exactly how that is. So if you follow the concept of the sovereign was in 1835, the straw man came to be in 1840. In between the two is, sorry, I'll come back, I'll explain that again. Our sovereignty was centralized into one crown. So we've got a crown. Our straw man in 1840. In between the two is our sovereignty. We cannot, based on the Constitution today, the only way that we can exercise our sovereignty is to declare or proclaim that we are our crown first and right. First and right. Only the crown, because it's legislated, can initiate their sovereignty. And their sovereignty can then act through their person, the birth certificate, the straw man.
Yeah. What I understood basically, you as a dead entity, you don't have a head, you know, and you need to say, look, I'm in control of this, how would you call it, like this entity through which you talk to the, you know, administration. But then if you say, you are my administration, you are here to serve me, when you say, I act here as a crown, they totally change their behavior. Correct. Because this legislation applies to them, you know, and you turn the whole picture around when you say, hello, I'm the sovereign here.
Yes,
I figured it out.
That enacts the sovereign, and the sovereign acts through my person. Therefore, I would like this, that, and the other. So right now we're in a belligerence mode right now because there's not enough of us standing up as crowns.
Yeah, got it.
So the birth certificate is all about taking our crown from us, therefore our sovereignty, and putting it into trust. creating an estate or a body corporate, which is a dead entity, all of those things, and using it, called the usufruct.
Got it. So we are basically stock to them, you know, if you look at it.
Yeah.
Like we are trading stock, we are
Yeah.
not alive, we have
Yeah.
like less rights than animals. Animals
Yeah.
are more protected because we are dead.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so that's the short story. So you can now get an idea of the basics of what the crown sovereign person is, but they all are one of the same in you and I.
Of course, just we are now aware of it, and we need to make people aware. Further ahead, can you connect me, because we talked before, they say all the roads lead to Rome, and it's like a central bank of this corporation, right? Am I right there?
Yeah, it's all part of administration. So
Yeah.
we're talking about a crown corporation here. So when we look at ourselves as the living crown, the spirit and the essence of, you know, God Almighty, or the great creator, or whatever you choose to name that spirit of yourself. But because it's in legislation, we've all believed that it's somebody else. We've all believed the crown was Queen Elizabeth, correct?
Yeah.
But now that we know the crown is ourselves, Queen Elizabeth was plonked there as the straw man, but she is associated with Rome or straw man, because they are, the way to explain is they are in the man realm. The crown is in the higher realm. There is no, and there should not be any connection or anyone in between me and my God, or you and your God.
Of course, totally agree. And you know, it's not just this concept, you know, like all the religious, spiritual theories point to that. And people don't realize, they always turn to some church, you know,
Yes.
spend money there, now misled, never realize their full capacity. And that's what they used basically against us. And the queen basically was the coronation of ignorance.
Yes.
You know, not really studying the scriptures and seeing what was laid out and for what it was laid out. You know, but the problem is what I'm worried about, if we go that way, problem is that the evil, that the devil, you know, he doesn't recognize God, you know, he condemn God, and basically that's why they kill people, and you know, because you're already dead, they don't care, you know. That's and I like really the sentence the crown sovereign mentioned. He said, just look at the devil. If you know, read it from the other direction, is lived. It is lived, like, you know, devil is basically lived, the one who lived. We're all dead, and they do whatever they want around here. And because they hold all the, you know, power, the army, even if we declare ourselves as crown, you know, they can just wipe us out. So that's what I'm worried about.
I think, and I might be wrong, but my senses tell me that it's right, that there is an agreement between God and the devil. There is an agreement that when God's people rise, there is a place where the devil kind of says, okay, you win, type thing. But anyway, I mean, that's a bit further ahead than we want to get.
I was thinking about that, and I have to tell you that there is no hope than what we make. Basically, this being, you know, awake to these concepts just makes you awake to the deceit and to the plan what they have and had with humanity, you know, and you act upon it. You know, it depends how they attack. Right now, they are attacking through legislation, through all this, you know, matrix setup. And I think this would be a way to go, and everybody needs to do their research. You know, I'm not advising anybody anything.
Well,
I'm doing my.
I'm kind of at a place as we've got no time to do research. They're either they either can pick up on the truth and just do it, or not. And yeah, there's a place you can go and research, but meanwhile they're out with the armies going up and down the streets in Melbourne with their torches at night, trying to spot people who are out that shouldn't be out.
Yeah.
So,
We are pushed to the wall right now. I know that.
Yeah.
And basically for people to trust, a concept and the organization, they need to have some examples, and I heard there were people, that already took their crown back through deregistering their certificate with this corporation. Yeah. And if you could share, if you know somebody or you yourself, have you acted ever as a crown in the court?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. And for us, we've done that because we've been breaking ground. We've been breaking ground based on, the knowledge that and the research that's come forward and we've looked at. But it's still up to each and every one to exercise it. And right now, we're feeling that there isn't that time to do it. We're also feeling that for the ones that can push this through, will continue to push it through. In the meantime, we're happy to share what we've got up until a certain stage, but people are still going to have to exercise it. They're going to have, I was about to go and exercise the Crown right because we've got checkpoints just up the road from here, stopping me from going from one zone into the next zone. Now, I'm Bosnian.
Don't get me swearing. I like freedom, and I was always a free soul and a freedom fighter from everything, and this is making me angry. But I'm a phoenix, I rise from the fires because I love, I love
all about timing. It's all about
we need to point people into the right direction. Basically, all this what we are talking is covered in the New Kingdom of New Zealand, right? On Facebook page.
I've got a website and I put that together in a few days just to get the bulk of the information out there. It's called is it the or just United Kingdom? Hang on a second, I'll just go and find it. It is United Kingdom of New Zealand.co.uk.
Got it. Yeah, I got that website actually. Okay. And if you could just make it clear to me, what is actually to be done to get your crown back, to declare yourself, I'm not dead, I'm alive.
Okay.
No.
We've just been talking about that this morning, and one of the things that I believe we must do is we must proclaim it. Yeah. That's one thing we must do. The other thing we must do.
Where do you? Sorry. I just need one by one so I can put. Where do you proclaim it? So where do you point yourself to proclaim it?
Sure. I'm just setting that up now, and I was talking to Crown Sovereign Nelson, painter, body corporate. I was just talking to him about that, saying that I've got this play on the website. You can see I've created a registration. And that's essentially where it's a formal registration of not so much proclaiming your crown, but bringing your records out of Babylon or out of administration.
Got it. So let's stop there. You are basically a community in New Zealand that proclaimed, their names back, took their sovereignty back. They're getting people together, and you have a website basically where you can register with that community. And when you register, does that mean that you proclaim yourself as alive, as your crown? Is that it?
We become the crown when we invoke it. I mean, right from the moment we say I am crown, we've evoked it. We are the crown.
Got it. Why do we need to register a birth certificate anywhere then?
The registry was all about bringing people into the collective and protection of the United Kingdom of New Zealand, which was set up and constituted for us in 1835. Now we can proclaim our crown, but where are we going to sit? What are we going? Are we just going to go willy-nilly out there and not have any cohesive community as far as the crown community is concerned? What we're doing is we're going back to 1835, Article 1. We're saying we are the crown in Article 1 of the 1835 Declaration. That's our international starting point, essentially.
Yeah, it's like the new registry, and what I understand, that you proclaim yourself as a crown when you realize you are one, you know, reading all these articles and the whole scam, what's going on, essentially many people will realize.
Yes.
But basically you can, but you don't have to register your birth certificate. You
Correct.
are as crown. Just does
Correct.
how does common law Magna Carta Article 61 relate to this, or is not related?
Well,
Lawful descent.
We've always said that they're functions of the crown. They're functions of the crown. So
Okay.
just as the criminal and civil jurisdiction is one function of the crown, so is common law a function of the crown, and so is Court of Equity a function of the crown.
Basically, the crown can act as their own agent in different matters.
Correct. Yes.
And by stating as a crown, what I realized watching few videos and listening to, you said Nelson, yes. Crown Sovereign, yeah? Yes. He said basically you can dismiss any matter that you want if you don't want to contract in that matter, because yes. It's your will, it's a contract. You don't want to enter, you said I dismiss it. Great. Because even if you're in front of the court, in front of the judge, first thing you ask them is like where you draw your jurisdiction from.
Yeah.
You know, where do you draw it from? Because I stand here as a crown sovereign. We are contracting parties.
Yes.
And I dismiss it. Goodbye, have a nice day. Yes. They can arrest you to, you know, to like to anger you, to bring you into fear, you know, so you doubt yourself. But
you into contract, to bring you back into administration.
Yes, and you just keep saying I'm the crown. What you're doing is, we can say, unconstitutional, because according to the Declaration of Independence of New Zealand 1835,
well, it is constitutional because it is in the Constitution. Those 4 articles, 1, 2, and 3, and 4 of the Declaration 1835 is in the Constitution Act of New Zealand 1986, and it is in the Constitution Act of Australia, same date, 1986. So it is constitutional. So what they've done is they've bought the articles of a declaration and they've just put it into legislation. So we can enact legislation as the Crown and says Article 2 is me. I am Article 2 in that Constitution. But in terms of creating the collective to dissolve Parliament, that's what's required. That, you know, that's the go-to. That's why we're doing this. Now we can be Crown individually and sort our stuff out individually, but it's not serving the problem. The problem is the Crown Corporation.
Got it.
And the tentacles of the Crown Corporation goes out into 97 countries that I've counted.
How do you find basically all these countries contracted with this corporation, and they were totally not transparent, or they were?
Well, they're not transparent, but they have disclosed. They do disclose who they are. But unless you know that you are the Crown, you don't know how to expose that disclosure. You don't know how to see that disclosure.
Yes, yes. So how can you explain how did they disclose it? Did they disclose it with the Declaration of Independence of New Zealand by saying, you know, Article 1, we are the sovereigns, and then the Article 2, right to administrate, and basically you are the crown and you have the right to administrate, but they never told you you are the crown. They said, this is the crown, you know, we have to bow down the crown, and the crown was basically this administration that you were supposed to run because you are the crown, but they brought, you know, this scam.
That's right. Well, the crown's dead. The crown's dead. So because the crown's dead, I will administer for the crown.
How did they declare the crown dead?
The crown became, put it this way, let's see how we do this. So they created the central crown in 1835. When they died. So therefore the crown died, yeah? Except the crown had heirs and successors.
The crown has no successors.
Has heirs and successors. Coming back to 1835, okay, 1835, they declared a crown in the Article 1, or sovereigns. They declared sovereigns in Article 1. They centralized all of those sovereigns into one crown.
Yeah, that was the Treaty of Valtogny, right? Where they said that that's when they brought the crown in, and you know where they decapitated everybody, giving their head to the queen.
They did that in 1840. Yes.
Yeah, got it. It's coming together. The puzzle is coming together.
Yes.
All right.
So they carried that on as those predecessors. Your predecessors, that's what we call them. We don't call them ancestors. As they passed away back then, because they became estates. When they cut their heads off, they became an estate. That's what the birth certificate is about, an estate. Now, subsequent successors, heirs and successors, also not knowing that they are the crown, and still dead entities, and still not evoking the crown to, you know, to activate their sovereignty, have had how many generations later? I think we're in the 7th generation since that signing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we are an heir and a successor to that original estate back in 1835. Somewhere you had an original estate in 1835 based on your paternal ancestor. That's how our estates are set up today. The original estate was formed in 1835. Whoever you come from on the paternal side, because that's how they set up the estate, it was down the father's line.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The father's line. So your estate today, which is one unit in the Global Asset Trust, and that's all legislated, of which the debt system is collateralized on, is what, you know, this whole, what is it, New World Order thing is trying to control and contain.
Yeah. So, but you do, let me go back to birth certificate. I totally like, it's aligning for me. Basically, when you know, get your birth certificate, that when you give up on yourself as the administrator, you know, of your land, you know.
That's when you pass your crown over. That's when you say, that's when your mother, when she signs that original, that first birth registration, is giving up your crown. However, there's good news. There's good news. Prior to your mother or father giving up your crown, there what we've found is that there is another record, a record that a child was born, a child with no name, usually recorded by the hospital, the doctor or the midwife, usually within 24, if not 48 hours after a birth.
Yeah, I have that from hospital, you know, like there is a name, there is a, you know, time of birth.
You don't have your name on it though, eh? You shouldn't have your name. It doesn't have your name on it. Your name comes in the registration. That's the next document.
Okay, so they just declare like the crown is born, and then they sell your crown to this corporation, you know, through the birth. You sell it basically.
Well, your mother unknowingly, or your parents unknowingly.
They're acting, they are you as well, you know, they're acting on behalf on you because you're the child. Yeah. So that was the last administration, you know, of you as a crown from your mother and father. That's when that's when they handed you over.
Great. That's when they took your crown.
So who was the first one to came up with this scam? Do you know?
Like, who was the first to come up with the scam? I think the British. Well, the British were cooking this up for some time. They had already set up their colonies around the world. By the time they got to New Zealand, they'd perfected how they were going to roll out New Zealand. What they had to give to the world was the franchise of administration. And that's what we're sitting in right now. That's what's rolling out with the armies and the police, because we are all under administration and we are not standing in our crown. And you're right, we're basically dead, so they can do anything to us because it won't hurt us.
I need time to process this. I'm just gonna ask you, would you mind if I share this on the Commonwealth Court Facebook website of Australia? Because people really want to know about this. And I think it was a really good and informative conversation for everybody there, because everybody, even people that have lots of back knowledge, you know, are very like confused about Magna Carta, lawful descent, about common law. There is another, you know, person I'm talking to, an Australian from Aboriginal descent, and he claims that we should totally like ignore, you know, all this what they set up, because by doing anything against it, it's like acknowledging them, and we should just, you know, stand in our sovereignty, everybody, but we need numbers as well, and make treaties with the people of the land, or original people, because it was actually never made. There is no line of authority or jurisdiction in Australia, because it doesn't have that foundation, you know. So that's another, and I really like to bring you all together to a Zoom conversation, you know, just to like fuse this all together and to maybe find the best solution. And that's when we, you know, can get more people in, when we have a very clear concept. What are we doing according to what is the legislation, you know, and the declaration we are pointing to when we are talking about that something. So if you would agree, I can organize that. And if you would agree, I would share this video so people, you know, can get their head around this concept.
Yeah, sure. That's okay. I'm kind of thinking, oh, do we really need for this to go further out? But hey, look, at the end of the day, we're in a dire situation, aren't we? We need to act.
What we are doing, don't be afraid, you know, because what I'm basically as well doing, I'm learning a lot. For me, even the common law concept is very strange, because I was studying Roman law, you know, and even talking to people here, lawyers, they say, you know, you can challenge everything in common law, but then when I ask them, like, where does the common law come from? Because they were so brainwashed, you know, and I understand, I was brainwashed too, you know, now, because looking from different direction, because we're in this crazy situation, you know, they cannot get the concept, you know, in their head that this whole comes from the people and that we created, you know, the administration. And many of them, even if you learn it that way, you know, studying law, people forget it when it comes to practical situation is really. And so what we are doing, we are just like teaching people, and we are learning all together to expand our consciousness, you know. And at the end, when you like put your attention into something, you know, a concept will rise up, you know, and that will give prosperity to everything. And that's the collective consciousness is about, you know, to like wrap our heads around different concepts all together, as many as possible. And some person or few person is gonna click, or to everybody, oh my God, you know. And that's where the Veva comes in, you know. That's where you wipe out, that's where you become alive and free.
That's
so
right.
Don't be afraid to share your knowledge. This is just knowledge, this is a concept, you know. And we all need to wrap our heads around all the concepts, because we gave them too much time, you know, and we tolerated and we ignored many bad stuff that they did already, you know, killing people everywhere from past to now. Right now they are killing people. So yeah.
Yeah, no,
Thank you so
agree.
much.
We are in empowerment mode right now, so.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. I'm still wrapping my head around it. This will help me so much. I tried to talk to this other girl, Jules Crown, but she said you would be the best person to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm okay on the concept side of it. The real nitty gritty details, that's Crown Sovereign's. That's his department. He's been the 20-year researcher in all of this. So I've just brought it together to help people understand who they are and kind of where we want to go with it. And essentially, Parliament in 97 countries need to stand down. And the only way that's going to happen is if the people stand up in their crown.
Where can we find these 97 countries, like to see the list?
Okay, so there is, I'll see if I can put it up on the source up on my Facebook page, but we're talking about the current Commonwealth countries today, and we're also talking about the countries that have a double tax agreement between New Zealand, with New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
Because the legislation created here in New Zealand, being first in time, first in law,
yeah,
the tentacles of legislation goes out through the double tax agreements.
Yeah. New Zealand was the military takeover beachhead.
Yep.
Got it. So you're gonna put it, I'm gonna share it on the website. I would ask you, please, if you could join our common law, just a Facebook page where we exchange knowledge, you know, and like correct each other. And if you or I could post this recording, I would really appreciate that. Yeah. Just for people to learn and to put their head around this concept.
Okay.
Okay, and we're gonna talk again, definitely. I'll try to organize the meeting if you're okay with that.
Fine, absolutely.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
The more people that know about this, the better, and the sooner they get their heads around it, the better.
Yeah, we are collecting information and people, and we're gonna make a class action.
Sounds good.
That's it. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You're welcome.
Bye then.
Have a good day. Bye now.
Bye-bye.